Hello, everybody. Today I am going to teach the section or the booklet for the Moroccan Star from the Stella Maris. What do we call them? The Stella Maris Mixers. My brain just kind of went away there for a minute. So, Stella Maris Mixers, Moroccan Star is what I'm going to teach you. If we look at the picture up here, it's this section on the quilt. Okay, you should have, if you did all your pre-cutting and kind of organized yourself, you should have your bags made out, which are, you should have 4 bags, and they're labeled bag L1, 2, 3, and 4, right? And inside each one of those bags, if you cut out your foundation papers already, then you should have the papers in each of those bags. And I'm not going to repeat those today, right at the moment, because you can read your instructions and it'll tell you which pieces go in the bags. The other thing you should have is a bag that has your fabric strips that are already stuck or already cut and stacked. Cut and stacked doesn't make one word. So cut and stacked in your bag, and along with that you should have the template layout sheets that you cut off your foundation papers as well, off of the newsprint. All right. I want you to go through your pattern and go through all your fabrics and put your little fabric swatches where it says your assigned colors on your chart. And then I want you to follow down through the instructions, and you're going to put a fabric swatch for fabric number 1. Turn the page, you're going to have a fabric swatch for fabric number 2, fabric L3, and fabric L4. And I'm just going to call them L's because that's what they are. And once you get those swatches in there, it's easier to follow your instructions, okay? So we're going to start, and the first thing I want to do is explain to you on the Moroccan Star and all of the pieces that are in L group, they split. So when you look at it, this is one unit in here, and then this is a unit. And so in your instructions, you're going to end up, you have that, and then you also have another one over here and over here. And when you color it, what's going to happen is it's going to color the left group, and then you have the right group. So even though there's only 2 foundation units to complete that, you have to have 4 groups of paper because you have left and right. And that's kind of hard to explain. It does not make a lot of sense until you lay it out. And I'm actually going to pull all of the papers out of the bag and show you what I'm talking about. It took me a while to figure out what was going on with this piece. So I just want to clarify what you're making here. So we'll set my bags aside, and I'm going to lay this out. I'm going to move the book as well, and then we'll put, this is an L2R, this one is an L2L, this piece here is an L1R, and then this piece fits on here like this. And this one is the left side piece. I don't want you guys to get too concerned about where the left and right go, But you do need to pay attention in the cutting and when you're stacking and sewing the pieces, that you keep the right pieces with the rights and the lefts to the left. And when we get to the end, we have diagrams that show you where to put each piece, all right? So I'm going to put these pieces back in there, and you're not going to I'm going to go step back because it looks like these are joined like this, but you don't join these. These will not get joined until you finish the final assembly on your quilt, is when you'll actually join these two pieces. So when you're making this and assembling your quilt, these are going to be in one part of your quilt and these are going to be in another part of your quilt. I hope you understand what I'm saying, and I know my hands are going all over, but so don't worry about trying to assemble anything in there because they all fall into place. So we're going to put them back in the bag so that we don't lose them. And I wrote the bag numbers on these papers because it is really easy to get lost if you don't pay attention. So this one here is bag 4. And this one is bag 2. Then we have, actually that was bag 3. This one's bag 2 here. And this one is bag 1. So now we're going to bring our book back here and we're going to start following our instructions. So I have already gone through and organized all of my template layout sheets to match up with the fabrics that I'm cutting. So we're going to pull all of our fabrics out, and we're going to pull our template layout sheets out, and then we're going to set that bag aside. And if you look, I got everything stacked in a group, and we're going to start with fabric number 1, which is L1, and this is the way our fabrics look. So I'm going to pick these up. I'm going to open them up, and I've already stacked my strips, and I'm just going to read the size. This is, I cut 4 4.5 inch strips for this piece. And they're all stacked, and the the template layout sheets that go with this are my first group, and that is template layout sheet number 1, and I can read it right here, and the other one is template layout sheet number 2. So let's look at the picture, and on the picture it tells me that template layout sheet number 2 is going to be positioned on this side. It looks like it has it positioned like that. And template layout sheet number 1 goes, actually template layout sheet number 1 goes here, and template layout sheet number 2 goes over here. And honestly, it really doesn't make any difference because they're going to fit both ways. I'm going to pull my tags off. And grab our repositionable glue, and I'm just going to run this on the back side of each one of these pieces. And then this one. And notice that our fabric's facing right side up. And I'm going to grab my ruler, slice along the edge. Now we're going to add our paper clips. And we put one paper clip on each template section. So I have to cut these apart. So we're going to start with cut line 1. Now this makes sense. So these are divided into all 4 bags. So we're going to find the pieces for bag 1, which is going to be my L1L pieces. So we have an L1L piece there and an L1L piece right here. And then we have an L2R and an L2R, and those go into bag 4. And then we have an L2L and an L2L, and those go into our bag 3, because those go with the L2L unit. And then these pieces are L1R and L1R, and those go into bag 2. All right, I'm not going to repeat that. I'm going to tell you guys to make sure you read at the bottom, and there's pictures, but when you're looking at your templates, it tells you that it goes with the L1L unit or the L1R unit. So you just need to double check that. Now we're going to set the bags aside, and we're going to go through that again with the next template piece. We're going to open up this strip. We're going to pull our pieces off, and you should have 4 2-inch strips stacked. This is fabric L2. And these pieces do the same thing. They're going to be divided into the 4 bags. So we have 4 different templates here. And the very first template is an L1, L4 template. And that is right here. That's going to go on right there. So I'm going to put my, go ahead and do all of them at the same time. It saves you a little bit of time, and it gives it a chance to get sticky. So my L1, L4 template is first. The next template that we put on is L1R5. So I'm going to open these up. Here's an L1R5. The next template I put on is an L1R4. And I'm going to move it down to the other end because I didn't press that. So I'm going to go down here. I'll put this one down here. And then the next template, actually, this one goes here, and this template is L1, L5. So that's going to go here. And this one goes like this. And then we're going to quickly cut at the end of that. Slide these back up. Just going to restack my strips just a little bit. Whoops, lost a ruler. Going to slice between your templates. Let's put a paper clip on each one of these. Now we're going to grab our bags again. All right, we have our L3, 4, 1, and 2. So we have an L1R4, then we have an L1R, L1, L4, we have an L1, L5, and we have an L1, R5. So my L1, L4 is right here, and that goes in bag 1. And my L1 R5 goes in bag, that's an L2 bag, which is that one. So that's an L1 L5. There we go. And then my L2 bag should be my L1R-4, and my L1 L5 goes in bag L1. So what it's telling me that these bags don't use that piece, which that makes sense because those were my smaller bags. That makes sense. All right, so let's put these bags aside again. So the next piece is fabric L3, and this one, it has 2 templates. Now each of these templates are actually identical. You just have to put the pieces in 2 bags. So we're going to take this, and I'm going to cut my first piece. And those 2 pieces, it tells me they go into the L1 bag and the L2 bag, because these are my, yeah. So let's put a paper clip on them, and then we'll put a paper clip on this one. And we're done with that. The next piece is, this is fabric L4. And these pieces are divided into all 4 bags when we're done. And this is I believe it was cut 5 inches, and there's 4 pieces stacked there. And I am going to have to use where this is pressed, so I want to hit that with an iron. So let's heat up my iron. Okay, those will lay down a little bit better now. So on this strip, we're going to use both template layout sheets. And in my diagram, it shows that template layout sheet number 3 is positioned at the top, which I don't think makes any difference other than just trying to keep track of it. And then this one. So you can see from the camera that there's not a lot of room in between those pieces. So that needs to be stacked as straight as you can get it. I'm going to move one of these up just a hair. And then we're going to cut here at the end. It seems like a lot of fabric left over, but we just couldn't get 2 sets off of a strip. So now I'm going to take my paper clips and I'm going to put a clip on the end pieces. And before we cut, we're going to read our papers here. So, template layout sheet number 3, when you look at the templates, you have some L2L templates, some L1L templates on both of the top one, and on the bottom we have some L2R templates and some L1R templates. So it looks like my left template pieces are going to be on the top group. So I don't want to mix them up because they're so similar. It will help us keep these straight if we keep them in 2 different pieces. So let's slice between the lines. And if you don't do a perfect job of cutting, don't worry, these template pieces the strips are plenty big, the templates, by the time they're cut. So I'm going to separate one at a time. And so we're going to cut right down the center of this piece. This is my cut line 1. And as I'm cutting, I'm going to keep track of what I'm doing here. So this piece, this is an L2, L4. This is an L1, L3. This is an L2, L2 piece. This is an L1, L8. This is an L1, L2. And this is an L1, L6. So these go with my left pieces and these go with the right. So I'm going to look for my bags. And it tells me that the bag L3, so I need bag L1 and L3. And the L2 pieces go into bag 3. And the L1L pieces, and I'm going to stack them in order and put a little paper binder clip on it. These go into bag 1. So now that we know how these are sorted, you guys will be able to pay attention as you do it. Don't just throw them all over like I did to start with. Keep it organized. All right, now let's do this one. So this one must have my L1Rs and my L2R pieces on it. So when we separate, we're going to separate them the same way. So cut down the middle. Okay. I don't think I put any sticky stuff on that template. I'm going to put another paper clip on it. Okay. This is an L1R2. This is L1R8. This is L1R6. This one is an L1R3. This is an L2R2, and this is an L2R4. So my L4 bag, the L2 pieces go into L4. And stack these in order with the largest number on the bottom. Let me grab a little paper clip. Put a binder clip on this little stack here. And these go into my bag 2. Now that took a little bit of time to stack and organize, cutting and organization. So when you're working, if no matter what L unit you work with in this collection, you're going to have to pay attention to the L units because they're all going to be like that. Okay, we're going to start with the paper piecing now. And before we do any paper piecing, I want to go over the stacking of the bags just because of all of the confusion of putting it together and all of those different numbers. So we have our foundation papers, and I'm going to work with bag L1, and I'm going to look at my papers really quick and find the section. So I have a section 1, and then I have section 2, section 3, section 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Okay, so when we go to our papers, we have a stack here of all of our light colors, and those go on these little strips here. And then we have all the dark colors, which I'm going to refer to them as backgrounds. So when we threw everything in a bag, everything should be somewhat in order. So I'm just going to double check. There's my 9, that's a 7, this is section 5, and this is section 4 and 1. Okay, so we're going to flip both piles over, and this one is section 8, which is the last one, so I'm going to leave that one up right at the moment. So let's pick up the first piece. This one is section 9, which goes here. That's my sew side. Section 8 goes right here, and I'm going to double check the template numbers, L1 to L-8, so we're in good shape. Then we're L1 L-7, that's section 7. This template here is L1 L-6. This template goes over here, and that's L1 L-5. And then this one is section 4, and the template is L1 L-4. Section 3 is this piece, and that is template L1 L-3, and it's correct. And this piece goes right here, and it should say template L1 L-2, and that's correct. And this is template L1 L-1. We did it! All right, so I'm going to set this one aside because I know it's correct. Let's just put the bag under it. And we're going to pull out the L3 and take a look at it. And this is one of the smaller units. So I have my section 1 starts here, section 2, section 3, and section 4. So if I look at my template pieces, this one is the last piece. Nope, this one is the last piece. So this should be L2 L-4, and it is. This one is section 3 and L2 L-3. This piece is section 2, and it's L2 L-2. And this is section 1, L2 L-1. So if this is correct and that bag's correct, then you're going to end up with the correct pieces in your other bags. So we're not going to look at those right now. I'm just because you guys will be able to go back through those yourself. So we're going to put this back in here. And I'm going to set my bags aside. And then we're going to go to the paper piecing. So I'm going to pick these pieces up. And get you started on the paper piecing. I'm only going to do one piece. You guys can do your chain piecing. I just want to show you how to get this started. So section 1, it's a diamond piece, and what you need to do is come in here, and in your instructions it always tells you in your paper piecing to mark the dash lines on the back. On this particular piece, I'm going to tell you that's a really good idea. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this red marker, and I'm going to grab my fold template, and I'm going to outline, just kind of draw right along each one of these dashed lines. If you only do one paper, it will really help you get this organized in your head, how these go together. They're pretty easy. And then you just stack this one on the top of your stack, and you always start with this. Okay. Oops, I missed a line. I'm going to go back and do it. So what we did is we traced all of the dashed lines. Now when I flip it over, I can see all of the sections that are back here. And I'm just going to quickly take a pencil, and I'm going to write the section numbers on this one. This is section 1. And I'm just going to write, this one here is 2. This is 3. This one is 4, 5. That would make this 6, 7, 8, and 9. Okay, so we shouldn't have any issues now figuring it out. So we're going to grab one piece off the bottom of our stack, and I'm going to flip it over, grab my glue, and I'm going to put this right in here. And the only place I'm going to put it is on that section 1. And then I'm going to take this and put it right over that part of it. Okay? And there's a little crease there, so I'm going to hit it with my iron. All right. Now we're going to flip it over, and we find line 1. We're going to fold back our foundation papers, pick up the add a quarter roller, trim, and then we're going to set it like this. We're going to grab the very bottom piece off of here. We're going to figure out what the sew side is, which is right like that. And then I'm going to pick this up and line that up. Now, I have to make sure that I have fabric along the edge here of my paper, and it has to go past that first red line there. So we have plenty of room. I'm just going to move it a little bit. And since the light is on the bottom, I want to be able to see a sliver of that light fabric. And then I'm going to glue that piece. And you're going to repeat that for each foundation unit, which you have 4 that you'll be making of this size. Now we're going to find line 1. and we're going to sew. And we need to downsize my stitch length. Now we're going to finger press that, and then I'm going to press it with the steam iron. We're going to flip it over, and we're going to find line 2. Place the fold template along the edge. And this is one of those times when you're going to wish you had a longer fold template. And I do have one here, so give me just a second to find it. I hid it. So we're going to set this one to the side. The reason why I want the longer one is so I can fold this the whole length of my paper. Otherwise, I'll end up tearing holes in it. And so we're going to fold it back, crease it the whole length. And notice how you're going to have to bring the fabric with it. You're going to pick this up and just tear that back like that so it lays nice and flat. Pick up your add a quarter ruler and trim. Now we're going to flip this piece over like that. And the next piece we're going to put on is section 3. And the reason I did the drawing on this is so you guys could see where section 3 lands. And it starts right here. And you can see where we have the red lines on both ends, and it comes out to here. So there's my section 3 that sets in here, and it only goes out to there. So I have to pick this up. I'm going to pull the bottom piece off. This is my sew side, and I'm going to find my red lines on both pieces. I'm just going to turn it a little bit and then place it right on there like this. And again, we have the light fabric on the bottom, so you want to see a sliver of that light fabric, and then you're going to put some glue, and then we're going to sew on line, that's going to be sew line 2. And again, we're going to take and we're going to finger press that open and then go to the iron. And that's what the piece looks like so far. Now we're going to add section 4, which is going to be right here. So I'm going to fold on line 3. I'm going to put the add a quarter ruler on there. bottom piece off of our stack, place it right side up. That's my sew side right there. So I'm going to find the ends. So right here and right there, there are my lines, just like that. And I'm going to center that so that I have fabric past this line right here and fabric past this one here. So the sewing on these pieces are pretty easy. It's just you have to pay attention when you're in the middle of the paper where to center it. And I really recommend that you, as you're sewing these pieces, double check them each time you get through sewing a group to make sure it covered everything properly. So now we're going to open it up. We're going to find sew line 3. Finger press that open and then press. And there's our piece. You're going to place this on line 4. And you're going to have to tear back both of those. There's 2 lines there where I had to tear. And just kind of pull the threads out of the way. Don't worry if it tore a big hole in the paper, it's just fine. And now you're going to put your add a quarter roller down along that edge. Trim. And now we're going to put on section 5. Here's my sew side. So my pieces are going to fit like that. And all we have to do is just lift this up and make sure there's fabric past the end of the paper there. And then I like to fold it back to make sure there's fabric past the end of the paper here as well. We're going to use our glue pen and glue along that edge. And move this out of the way. So on line 4. Finger press. Press with the iron. Now we're going to roll this around. We're going to flip it, and we're on line 5. Fold back. Grab your fabric and tear the paper. These are your stitch lines that I'm tearing there. And then we're going to place that at a quarter, trim. I'm going to pull my extra threads out. Then I'm going to roll this. Remove the bottom. Read your sew side on your template piece and make sure that you have your fabric right side up and that it's in the same position. If you position it like that, it's going to be backwards. So follow. Remember, your template is always the top side of the fabric. We're going to double check right here. We're good, and we have plenty of fabric over the end. My light fabric's on the bottom, so we want to see a sliver of the light fabric along that raw edge there that we glued. Now we're going to take and we're going to sew on line 5. And a finger press. Press with the iron. Place the fold template on line 6. Fold back the paper and trim. Okay, I'm going to clean off the edge of this just a little bit, just to get rid of some of that extra fabric. And I'm going to open this up and clean the edge of this off. Now we're going to bring this back. This is my sew side. It tells me on the paper that's going to fit right under there like that. Lift the trimmed 1/4 inch seam allowance, put your glue, press. I'm going to place it on line 7, fold back, trim. And this is my sew side there, so I have to make sure that piece is right side up. And it's going to fit on here just like that. Lots of room. And we want a sliver of that light fabric showing along the edge. my sew side, section 9. And I need to try not to burn leave my iron down. There we go. And we're on the very last line, which is line 8. Now we're going to press it. And you can see our piece here, so that's what it looks like. Now we're going to flip it over and we're going to trim it. We'll place our ruler right along that edge. And there's our first piece finished. I'm not going to show you guys how to do the other 3 units because they're done the same exact way. You're going to have, this is actually my left unit, you're going to have a right unit that's just the opposite, and then you have the 2 small units. And that's the information that we have to give you for this block. Remember to look at the very end of your booklet, and it's going to tell you whether or not you should sew it together. And these pieces are not sewn together, so you just leave them like this so there's no further sewing on it until we get ready to assemble the quilt.